This is Samsung's new budget mid-ranger, the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. It might not be the most impressive Samsung phone around, but can it still provide you a decent smartphone experience? I'm Will for GSM Arena, and let's find out in our Galaxy A14 5G review. The Galaxy A14 5G isn't a huge update over its predecessor, the A13 5G. You get the same cameras on the back, and the same battery capacity too. The chipset is the same as well, but that's not so straightforward. I'll get into it in a bit. The major update you'll find on the A14 is the display. It's slightly larger and has been upgraded from a 720p resolution to 1080p. You also get a higher res selfie cam this time around. The Galaxy A14 brings a design that's similar to this year's flagship models. It is made of plastic though, rather than more premium materials. The flat back panel has an interesting vinyl-like texture to it too. You get individual bumps for each of the rear cameras, and a slightly rounded frame. The phone feels grippy enough and quite solid. Like I mentioned, on the front is a new 6.6-inch display with a 1080p resolution and a 90Hz refresh rate. It's an LCD here, not an AMOLED. With a pixel density of 400 ppi, the A14's screen is much sharper than last year's model. Since it's an LCD, blacks aren't as deep as on an OLED panel, but the contrast is still decent. There are no color options to choose from, and out of the box, the colors aren't super accurate. The 90Hz refresh rate makes your movements and swiping on the screen appear smoother than they would on a screen with a standard 60Hz refresh rate. It will dial down to 60 when idling though to save energy. And for brightness, we measured a maximum of 520 nits here. There's no boost on top of that available in bright conditions. The Galaxy A14 has a headphone jack and a single bottom firing speaker. The speaker's loudness is good, and the sound quality is okay. You can wake up and unlock the phone with a side-mounted fingerprint reader built into the power button. And the Galaxy A14 can come with 64 or 128 gigs of storage, and is expandable beyond that through microSD. The interface of the Galaxy A14 is One UI 5.0 Core on top of Android 13. It's similar to what you'd get on the new high-end Samsung phones, but with trimmed-down features. For example, you don't get the Bixby Assistant or Samsung Pay. Otherwise, you get a pretty familiar Samsung interface. To learn more about specific features, you can check out our dedicated One UI 5 video. I mentioned earlier that the chipset situation is a bit complicated. The A14 5G comes with different chipsets depending on the market. In the Indian market, you'll get an Exynos 1330 chipset, which has both a more powerful CPU and GPU than the Dimensity 700 in last year's Galaxy A13 5G. However, our Galaxy A14 is the US variant, which brings back the old Dimensity 700. It's a low-end, 5G-capable chipset that delivers just average performance for this price range. So it seems that the Indian model is much more appealing in this regard. The Galaxy A14 5G has the same 5000 mAh battery capacity as last year, and the battery life for this US variant is excellent, with a score of 130 hours in our proprietary tests. The phone is rated for 15-watt charging, but you don't get an adapter in the box. With an official 25-watt Samsung charger, we were able to charge the A14 from 0 to just 30% in half an hour. Not too speedy. The A14 brings the same rear camera setup as the previous model. There's a 50-megapixel main cam, a 2-megapixel macro camera, and a depth sensor. Photos from the main cam are very good for the class. Detail is excellent, and the contrast and dynamic range are good. The colors could use some more saturation though, and there is some visible noise. Portraits taken with the main cam are good. The subject detection is proficient, and the blurred backgrounds look nice. Close-up photos from the macro cam are predictably mediocre. There's not much detail to be had, and the colors are muted. In low light, the main camera produces shots with good detail and mostly accurate colors. Highlights can be blown out, and while shadows are decently well developed, they contain plenty of noise. Turning on the night mode makes a big difference when it comes to dynamic range. The highlights are reined in and light sources are restored. Shadows do look a bit darker though. The detail also gets some heavy sharpening applied, and each night mode shot takes around 6 seconds to capture. For selfies, you get a 13-megapixel front-facing cam, an upgrade from the 5-megapixel one in last year's model. Selfies come out good, with plenty of detail and sharpness, accurate colors, and very good dynamic range. There is some noise, but it's not a big issue. The Galaxy A14 can capture videos with its main camera in 1080p at 30 fps. The detail is nice for this resolution, colors are saturated, and the dynamic range is okay. There is electronic stabilization available, and while it does smooth things out a bit, you lose some detail and there's heavy sharpening at it. So that's the Samsung Galaxy A14 5G. For a budget phone, it's pretty decent. The screen upgrade to 1080p is nice, and you get good battery life and a decent main and selfie cam, plus the Samsung software package. We wish the chipset update was across the board though. As it stands now, US consumers will get a less competitive product than those in India. Still, if you're able to get the Exynos version, or you just don't care about the chipset at all, the A14 could be worth considering. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're after alternatives to the Galaxy A14 5G, one option could be the OnePlus Nord N20 5G, or you could have a look at the Realme 10 Pro. Let us know what you guys think, and I'll see you on the next one.